It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents, not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Good morning, everyone. Brand new show this week. All kind of interesting stuff happening for sure right now. I'll tell you, it's been a wild couple of weeks in real estate. Just got the brand new market numbers in from last month. Huge jump in terms of properties closed, 10+%. Huge jump in prices, which is good. We'll talk about that. That was going to be a little bit short-lived because we have two different types of markets right now. We got the market behind us, which is closed based on lower rates now, but rates are going up like crazy. Rates we talked about last week's show predicted to get 3 more potential rate hikes from the Fed this year. Some news this week helped soften that a little bit. We'll talk about there may be just one, but we're already seeing mortgage rates go up in anticipation of that and kind of what's happening based on Fed futures. And so we'll talk about kind of what that means, what's going on with that. Really kind of some shocking data we have from some national stuff coming out, particularly how many homes realtors actually sell each year. We had it last week's show, just did not get a chance to get to. But it's been wild. Have a bunch of different success stories, amazing success stories. Lately, we had 3 this week that were all probate properties where people initially thought they were just going to go get a cash offer. They're going to basically kind of give it away because they didn't want to fix anything up. We were able to get them a whole lot more money just through that and sell their property as is. We'll kind of talk about that, how that works. It's one of the biggest opportunities I see for people that just leave money on the table. There's a lot of vultures out there that they will literally watch the probate in the courts, and then they reach out to the family to try to get that property because they think they can they have to fix it up and do all these crazy things to be able to get money out of it, but they sell to an investor for dirt cheap. Investor just turns around, slaps some lipstick on it, and gets a massive amount of money for it. So we'll talk about those success stories, which is awesome. In addition, we just closed on 3 separate properties this week with our investment fund. Those were not probate. They're just people who want to get a quick, fair cash offer in terms of what they do. Different types of properties. One on acreage, one's a condo in Myrtle Beach, one single family house in Myrtle Beach. We'll talk about those, how our fund's able to come in, solve problems, get you cash offer, fair price, much more I feel that we're paying than the other investors out there because we're actually licensed, we're actually local, we're actually here, we actually close in the properties, which is cool. And we are actually cash, not some wholesaler stuff out there as well. We're just kind of looking at, hey, what's going to happen this fall? To talk about Fed futures, we mentioned there's a lot of talk about what's happening with inflation, with interest rates. I think that we have a small window for anybody thinking about selling right now. I think it's going to be a rough fall, rough winter, maybe a decent fall, very rough winter. Looking back, I still have PTSD from January, February this year. It was rough, very, very, very difficult, higher rates, very, very slow. I think if you see 1 or 2 potentially more interest rate hikes from the Fed, it's going to put the brakes on some very delicate home sale market right now. So I think if you're thinking about selling, I'll break it down. It's like, look, this last little window, now Labor Day, now to the fall, I think it's very, very important. Myrtle Beach, very seasonal marketplace. We're a very interest rate driven marketplace across the country right now. So many buyers are on the edge of affordability, right? Middle classes get hammered with inflation. And so I think it's one of those things where if you're thinking about selling, I want to give you the data, the information to really help you make some better decisions. And maybe if I'm thinking about selling, I want to do that sooner rather than later, which is super important to look at. And so some areas right now in the market, the country are struggling right now, right? Some areas of Florida, a lot of areas of Florida, a lot of areas of Texas, parts of Arizona, we're seeing kind of struggle. And typically, like I mentioned before, I've been doing this for a very long time, 20 plus years. And I see we will follow those markets about 6 months later. And so we're right coming up on that cusp of that. And so I'll talk about that. Talk about one of the biggest reasons right now we're seeing deals fall apart nationally. Saw some recent data this week. Almost 20% of deals that go under contract, and in some cases up to 30, are falling through for multiple different reasons. And a lot of it's just buyer's remorse. Home inspection is kind of the claim on it. There's ways to get around that, ways to defend against that, because the last thing you want to do is be a homeowner looking to buy something else, right? Contingent upon you selling your property. All of a sudden you get to the closing table and the buyer buying yours backs out, costs you a whole lot of money, a whole lot of heartache. And we'll talk about how to defend against that. And it also comes down to the agent. I just saved one of our sellers $10,000 this week. I'll break down exactly how I did it through the negotiation process. But do the same thing we're doing here every single week for the last 15 plus years on this station. That's to give you everything real estate related. Help you keep updated on the marketplace, what's happening. I have one main goal is for people to make better decisions for largest assets. And for most people out there, that is their real estate. And so make sure to stay tuned. Lots of great stuff on today's show.
For any new listeners, just to give you an update on just who Blake is, it's an amazing story. Industry leaders have dubbed him the real estate whiz kid. Been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, NBC, Realtor Magazine, and many other national publications. He has been personally endorsed by Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. One of those by itself is an accomplishment, but all of them together is unprecedented. Last week, we learned a little about how you and your team work and how a good portion of your success has come from the trademark systems you have developed to help both buyers and sellers here in our market. Recap quickly for anyone new to the show what those are exactly and a quick overview of how they work, Blake.
Yes, Rick, and this whole reason to the show, I mean, it's just every week after week after week I hear this. One of the stories this week, our agents Baron on a team, we're talking about, met with one of the sellers who was very frustrated with the agents in the marketplace, met with 3 different sellers. The other 2 gave prices almost $100,000 below what we let them know it could sell for, right? Because we know the data. Baron knows the data very well, studies the market at a very high level. And guess what? Listed at the higher price, over $100,000 above what the other agents had recommended. Guess what? Boom. Launch process, got under contract. And so that's the reality of when you're talking about very high ticket items. Everybody makes this massive mistake every single week. Every single week I see it. And so I made a promise I'm going to keep talking about it every week until I don't have that problem anymore. Because I can talk about anything else that's cool and fun that still doesn't fix the major problem. The biggest problem I see in the industry right now, every single day, has to do with you, the consumers, make this massive mistake of thinking that all real estate agents are the same. And it could not be any further from truth, right? Just like any doctor, any lawyer, right? If you're charged with a crime you did not commit, the last thing I want some part-time attorney who's only tried a few cases, right? The last thing I want is someone who's not really in depth and detail about what's going on. And you want somebody who understands that because it helps anything with a doctor, right? You want a doctor, the absolute best, most aggressive in that type of medicine who can advise you the right thing. And it's crazy how it works, right? So I just had a situation. I had surgery last week. I've had some health challenges before in terms of like some genetic with some moles and things like that. Potential. My family has melanoma in there. So I've had some stuff removed, had something come up. One doctor says, hey, don't even worry about it. Other doctor is like, dude, you absolutely have to make sure that you get this taken off. And so obviously I erred on the side of caution, but it just goes to show that's what has to do with humans, right? You want to make sure you understand and be able to have depth and knowledge of making those decisions. Because for doctors, right, that's a lot of times life and death decision. And so you want to understand who's that type of doctor, who's most aggressive, how good are they, how much do they care about details. And so it's the same exact thing you're dealing with your largest asset because here's the thing. Service-based business, just like the doctor example I gave you, right? You want to make sure that for me, dermatologists, I go to 2 different dermatologists. The other one didn't really know about the other one, right? Until now, they've kind of explained the whole process and gave the path report and said, here's the data, here's the information. What do you all think I should do? Took it back to my primary physician too and said, hey, look, here's the data. Here's what the path report says. What do you think I should do? 2 of the 3 said, hey, go ahead and get it taken off. Next to the 4th one, who was my previous surgeon, who said, hey, you don't really need to based on that. But obviously, that's why it's so important to have that understand the difference where it's the same exact thing you're dealing with your largest asset. You have to make this understanding that the agent you choose is by far the single most important variable that determines your success or failure as a home seller comes down to the agent, period. That's it. Because they have to execute all these variables have to get done. For example, when you're selling property, there's 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one's handled correctly, as you all know, if you listen for a while, each one's handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. Anything handled incorrectly, aka they drop the ball at any point. This happens a lot. Why is that? Because it's simply impossible for one single person to execute 118 different variables at a high level on one listing, much less the 10 listings they got, which is why you don't get anything back. You don't hear anything back from them. That's why when buyers try to call to buy your property, no one answers the telephone because they're too busy trying to get the next listing. The old school business model is broken in real estate, period. They still operate like they did in the 70s with all the technology, all the things that have to happen now, all the data, all the processes. It's simply impossible for one single person to execute at the highest level alone. But unfortunately, 95% of agents in North America operate the old school way. And so that's the challenge, right? And those variables I mentioned could be anything like pricing strategy, like the example of Baron earlier. The other agents advised price $100,000 below where we did, and we're able to get them the most. We got them more. $100,000, that's a $100,000 issue right there, right? If they wouldn't have gone and checked with someone like us, who's very, very knowledgeable in that scenario. There's a lot of nuances and things that happen in that process. But from pricing strategy, from the quality of the photos, the order of the photos, people search by elimination. If my photos, like you see this mistake happen a lot of agents will do a chronological order of the house, right? They kind of take to the walk to the front door. You've lost the buyer's interest there. In today's society, the attention span is less than a goldfish. And so you got to make sure you're really truly attracting their attention and getting them in and selling them on looking at the rest of the photos and understanding the psychology, attract the click-throughs. And so you want pictures 2, 3, and 4 to sell them on looking at the rest of the listing, which gets them to obviously look at their virtual tour, which gets them to click the button to show the property, which gets them in the house, which obviously increases the chance that someone buys it. And so that's the psychology you have to understand at a high level to get people in the property, and that's exactly what we do. And so it can be anything from negotiation strategy, right? Desperate agent, the average agent sells less than 4 homes per year in our marketplace. If they're selling 1 per quarter, what do you think the chances are they throw their client under the bus in 2 seconds just to get the deal done? Very, very high. I see it every single day. And so that's a challenge you kind of run up against. Home inspection, negotiation, issues in the back end, handling details of the closing. Do they manage the deal so it doesn't fall through last minute? Do they actually take the time to check and verify proof of funds and or pre-approval letter from lender? All these things have to happen, but the reality is the average agent misses those because they're selling 4 homes a year. They're just swinging by the seat of their pants trying to get what they can and hoping that something sticks. And so when I got in the business, I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a more systemized approach. When I all started out as a big box store, Cole Banker, back then, great company, but it was just the business model was not right for me. It was 200 agents. They didn't care about me. I didn't care about them, right? If anything, they were mad if I got a listing. They were mad if I got something under contract. And I knew that shouldn't be the case within a brokerage. You should be in alignment. They should be happy for that, right? Each person should push each other. And that's exactly what you want. And so I took the old school model and flipped it upside down. We created a brokerage that's an independent brokerage that's aligned and set up like a team where everyone's in alignment. We created a team of specialists where each person specializes in each part of the sale. So they're very good at what they do and they can execute like through a microscope at the highest level to create maximum leverage for our clients. We have inside sales, we have outside sales. We have a listing coordinator, closing coordinator, full-time graphic design, full-time videographer, photographer, all these things to help support the team, right? To make sure our agents can do exactly what they're good at, which is selling properties, reaching out to clients, showing properties, getting listings sold. And that's what we're so good at. And so through that, I designed this thing called the Guaranteed Sold System, the only proven system that sells homes twice as fast and for 21% more money than traditional methods. And it works very, very, very well. I designed it. We trademarked it. We do license to other parts of the country, but it's amazing. Works very, very well. You can actually watch a detailed documentary right now on my website, which we put together. It's at blakesloan.com, and it really goes back behind the scenes, pulls the curtain back to show the challenges with the industry. It shows a study on there, like I mentioned before, a company called 3,000 real estate brokerages across North America. Less than 50% of the time, someone answered the phone or called back. So think about that. Those are buyers trying to buy your property. Most of the time, that agent that you call doesn't even answer the phone. And I see it all the time. We try to recruit agents, and I'd say 80% of the ones I call don't even answer the phone, which is crazy. And even crazier, about 50% of them have the AI call blocker on there to verify. Most of these buyers aren't going to go through all that to jump through those hoops to try to call in your house. And so you want somebody who can make sure that they're able to execute. And every buyer inquiry comes through. Every buyer inquiry gets followed back up with. No one slips their cracks. And so for the buyer side, guess what? Same exact challenges. 100 plus variables when you buy a property. If each one's handled correctly, it saves you money. Get the property you want. Anything's done incorrectly, you miss out on the property, or you overpay and it costs you money through that process. And so through that unfair advantage home buying system, but you proudly access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price by a true expert, as well as home inspection. And both those do one single thing. They're designed to give you, the client, a competitive advantage in the process, right? For sellers, we do it every single day. Buyers, same exact thing. So if you want to know more, you owe it to yourself to at least investigate it, right? I know you're skeptical. Everybody's skeptical today's time. Go check out the documentary. It's on there right now. BlakeSloan.com. We're hustling all weekend. It's holiday weekend. We'll be here. We're working. Give me a call for any questions. 843-808 sold. A quick break. Right back in a sec with a market update.
Hey, Sean Hannity here with the only real estate agent in your market that I recommend, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. Now, thanks for joining me today. A lot of real estate companies are making instant offers these days. What makes yours different from what they're offering?
Hey, Sean, that's such a great question. The massive difference is we actually buy your house. Most of those advertisements you hear, even on the same station, are wholesalers. They're just there to lock your property up at a discount price and try to assign it to someone else, make money off your hard-earned equity. Then they leave you hanging at the closing table if they can't find someone else. They never had any intention of closing. Most don't even have the money to close if they wanted to. We're local. We have millions of dollars, and we actually close the deal.
All right, thanks for keeping us up to date. Find out how much demand your home can command right now. Call the agent that creates the most demand. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD or online at blakesloan.com. That's blakesloan.com. And consider your home sold.
Hi, I'm Barbara Corbin. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options to home sellers, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, we can agree to sell it by a certain date, pay cash for your home, or even rent it.
That's great. And And if the seller has a bit more time,
Through the marketing plan to sell it for the highest price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back, Blake Sloan, Real Estate Show. Brand new market update. All kind of interesting stuff happening. I'll tell you, we're in two types of markets right now. We got what we talked about, the closing market, right? Which is what's closed. Last month, we called out the rearview mirror. We have the fresh, brand new numbers just off the press. We'll probably see them fine-tuned the next couple of days, just because it takes many agents like 10 days to get their sales in sometimes from last month. But the market was huge. Our business was up. The entire business was up. That comes on the heels of low interest rates in previous months, right? If you remember, was that February, March, part of April, rates were really, really low. They started creeping back up and the war came in. Now we're getting way up there where it's definitely causing some issues. And there's projections of much more. We talked last week's show. Bank of America came out, made a full announcement. They thought there'd be 3 full Federal Reserve hikes this year, which is like not good for mortgage rates, right? And obviously comes with inflation. Some new job data came out this week. Now they're saying, hey, maybe 1 or 2 hikes. I'll break down the exact data, the exact probabilities for each of those in a second, but I want to kind of bring it up where what's happening is, yes, properties closed last month at a high level, but what's happening is you're seeing new properties that go under contract, we'll call it the front windshield numbers, slow down significantly, right? We'll talk about that first. What's the front windshield numbers? That's what's really the most valuable to me when I'm talking to clients, because that lets me know what's the real-time pulse, what's happening right now, and I can advise my clients to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit less aggressive in terms of their price and how they do that. And so that's something that's super important to think about. So in the last 7 days, how many properties are under contract? That's what we track, right? The entire Grand Strand here. In the last 7 days, 512 properties under contract for $192,187,359. Now, remember, I've always said anything over 200 million is rock and rolling. We're not over 200 million. And guess what's the busiest week for Myrtle Beach in terms of vacations and tourism? Typically July 4th week, right? And so that's concerning. You're seeing it go down back below. So the lowest has been in a few months overall. I couldn't go back and count, but a significantly long time. A lot to do with the interest rates, right? A lot going on right now in terms of rates climbing significantly, lots of inflation challenges. In the last 7 days, like I mentioned, $192,187,000 of properties under contract. Some big time stuff still. One at Ocean Boulevard, Myrtle Beach, 30th Ave, $3.8 million, which is awesome. 14 properties are $1 million under contract. 101 properties are $500,000. In inventory, the amount of homes for sale in Horry County up from last week at 1,911. Now, if you go to last week's show, there was 540 properties under contract overall for $214 million. 1 over 3 million, 6 over 2 million, 26 over 1 million. So big jump there, right? Over double that in terms of that, what you're seeing. And so that's one challenge. If I look just in the last 9 days, here's what's crazy. So I track this every morning in a spreadsheet. I want to last Monday, not this Monday, last Monday. So if you go back to that, the sales, the amount of units in terms of the actual number. So in this 7 days, 512 is down 8% just in 9 days, which is crazy, right? If you go to the actual volume, which in this case, 192 million, where it was 9 days ago, 11% drop just in the properties going under contract. So to give you context, if I go to that last Monday, it was 546 for 212 million. Right now, like we talked about, 512. 192 million. When I checked this morning, is only 504 for 189 million. So that's something that is significant. You're seeing 10 to 12% drops just in a matter of a couple of weeks, and that's in the face of increase in interest rates. Like I mentioned, they'll typically know what's happening in the Fed in the future. The mortgage and bond market, which drives mortgage interest rates, tends to build that in ahead of time. And so that's a challenge we're seeing here. What that means for the fall and winter market, if it continues to do so, it's going to be brutal. So if I'm thinking about selling, I want to do it earlier rather than later. If I'm thinking about buying, I want to do it earlier rather than later. Yes, you may be able to get a little bit better deal from the seller, but you're going to pay significantly more money in interest rate if you're doing financing. So it all depends on the buyer type. We can advise you based on if you're an investor, if you're a cash buyer versus a financing buyer. Different things matter, right? That's something that's important. We talked about one seller today who was this week actually, and we talked to him again today, but they were looking to move to Florida, and they didn't know about the homestead rules that are getting put in place, where obviously I'm sure you guys may have seen they're looking to vote on that option to do away with property taxes for up to $250,000 on your property, but you have to be a resident by this year based on the newest legislation, right, to be able to take advantage of that. And they were thinking about moving 8 months, would say, if you want to go ahead and get locked in to a place in Florida, lock in a lower interest rate based on what the Fed's going to do, and make sure you get your residency set up, probably best to sell your property here, buy there, get locked in. They were blown away. They're like, wow, no agents told us that. No agents talked about that. And that's what we do, right? We want to help you make best decisions based on the financial data, based on the entire macro market, what's happening. And so that's something that's super important to understand overall. Looking at properties here, I'll kind of break down really quick the closed data. But the reason I share that, I foresee it getting worse. I've talked about it with my team, or people have been predicting the rates go up. You're going to see more resistance, right? More headwinds in terms of the marketplace just because affordability goes down. And so if you're thinking about selling, do me a favor, reach out now. Don't wait till a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. It'll be a little more difficult. It's going to be a very difficult winter, in my opinion, unless something drastically happens that helps ease inflation, gets rates back down. I don't see anything in the short term that will do so. So for any home sellers out there, I'm definitely worried about that. And I'd want to do something sooner rather than later. And so looking at closed deals, huge, right? Big jump there. 616 properties under contract. 616 properties closed last month in the month of June. That's up 10.2%. From the same time last year, which is awesome. If I go back to the 10-year curve, the last time we had that many properties was June 2022. So 4+ years it's been since we had that many properties close in a single month. So that's significant, right? And it's because on the heels of that low interest rate happening in the very early spring market, all those properties are closing. If you watch the graph, it's a huge jump in terms of that, which is awesome overall. If you look at sales price overall for sales price, a breakdown average sale price, up 8.2% from the same time last year, which is great. Right now it's at $507,516 for average sale price. It's not quite to the peak we saw last December at $555,000, but it's been bouncing around. For example, last month in May it's $489, jumped up to $507 just month versus month, which is great. Median price skyrocketed as well, which is great news. Up $405,000 for median price, which is great. The last time we really saw that was right at December 2025. And then before that, the last time we saw it was May 2024. Those are the only 2 times we peaked that, and that was the record there. So supply, the amount of homes, actually down 10% from where it was last year. We saw that run over those last couple months, right, where rates are low, buyers are jumping in. Is a phenomenal spring market, just like I talked about and predicted. I said, hey, this is going to be one of the most pivotal and important spring markets and summer markets in almost a decade. Guess what? We were seeing those type of numbers come in, especially until the war came and started driving interest rates up as well. That's one thing we'll talk about. Supply, 4.9 months of inventory, which means it is a seller's market right now. Average days of market is still pretty high. The properties that do sell, it takes 110 days on average to sell. And this is important, right? You get a lot of sellers who try to set expectations. Here's what's happening, right? We say, hey, look, your neighborhood right now, average days on market is 120 days. We're pretty good until we get it done 30-60. They want to know on day 14 what hasn't sold yet, right? You have to understand the dynamics, and the important part, you can really comes down to pricing strategy. If you want to get the most amount of money, you got to be a little more patient. If you want to get it sold faster, right, be a little more aggressive on price. And we're very good at breaking that data down and giving our client a couple options based on what we're seeing from the data standpoint. So looking at the most important number I really look at is showings per listing. Right now, the average amount of showings a listing gets the entire time it's listed, so typically 6 months for a residential home, it's 3.5 showings the entire time. So basically 1 every other month, right? How many property showings does it take to get a property under contract? We call it door swings. It takes 12. So you need about 4 times the amount of showings that the average listing gets to get a contract. That's why most of them are sitting what we call the stagnant mass. They sit below. They don't get much traffic. They're overpriced. The agent doesn't do marketing. There's no one to push it. And so you really need differentiation right now to get people looking at it, especially in the mid-range house prices and also for condos as well. If I go look at condos, townhomes overall, sales up 5.9% last month, which is great. Compared to the same month last year. Average sale price pretty much flat, down 0.8% at $259,000. So pretty much the same exact place it was last year, which is good because we did see a significant decline. Prices were about 13% decline there for a little while, but last month they did jump back up, which is helpful for an average. Some buildings are getting crushed overall, depending on where they're at, location, especially condo sales, insurance, assessments, things like that. I saw one had $98,000 assessment on it, which is very difficult to sell those, right? Buyers are very scared of that. Months of supply right now, down 8%, which is great. There's 8.1 months of inventory for condos, which means it's still a buyer's market. I don't see that getting better in the short term just because buyers are terrified of condos right now. Assessments, HOA increases, right? Limitations are seeing that, and prices continue to decline in a lot of buildings and areas. It is a challenge. So the average showing per listing right now, 1.8 showings per listing for a condo. On average, takes 8.8 to get an actual contract. So you need 4 times the amount of showings, almost 5 times the amount of showings the average condo gets to get a contract. What does that mean? It means the agent you pick is so important because the average agent you pick is going to get you about 1.8 showings per listing. But the problem is the mathematics show based on the amount of showings and data, it takes 8.8 to get a contract. What's going to decide that? Well, you can drop your price dramatically, or you can have a combination of pricing it right and have an agent who has marketing behind them, who has a sales team behind them, who can push it, answer the phone, follow back up, make sure things get executed at the highest level so that you can get buyers in your property, get someone looking at it. And that's exactly what we do and exactly what we explain in our documentary. You can check out at blakesloan.com overall. One thing we talk about interest rates, right? Right now, interest rate's 6.6% for a 30-year fix. It keeps climbing. On Thursday, it was 6.5%, so it did come down a little bit, which is helpful. A 15-year fixed rate right now, 6.17%. 30-year jumbo loan, 6.77%, which is getting up there. We're going to get back above 7, looks like, which is very, very difficult for a lot of people, a lot of buyers. You typically see the market come to almost a standstill at that part. 30-year FHA loan, 6.17. 30-year VA loan, 6.19 overall, and it's going to come down. Hey, what's the Federal Reserve going to do, right? Right now, it's 26 days and 2 hours and 4 minutes into the next Federal Reserve meeting. The good news is the first one, it's not really expected, only a 17.6% chance they're going to hike it. That's been the case pretty much overall. The next meeting after that, September 16th. Right now, there's a 54% chance they're going to increase rates. That has gone down the last couple of days, which is great news after the jobs report. Also, looking at October, there's a 63% chance, and December a 77%. It was an 82% chance. So you're going to see at least one, maybe 2 or 3 hikes. So that means for me as a home seller, take action earlier than later. You don't want to wait till rates go up to put your house in the market, right? You want to put that ball in on the tee while people are swinging that club. And so if you want to know more, reach out, call me, 843-808-SOLD. Really quick, I'm going to skip right to our hot buyers alert, right? My team and I are working a ridiculous amount of home buyers. Looking at our property here in Myrtle Beach Ranch area. Right now, anywhere from $250,000 to $6.6 million. If you're thinking about selling, give us a call, 843-808-SOLD. Right now, 83,934 active home buyers. Again, 83,934 active home buyers. One thing we do, put our money where our mouth is, right? Most agents, they put a sign in the yard, pray someone brings a buyer. They're down the street. There's no ad spend. The average agent sells 4 homes a year. With us, we spend 6 figures a month in marketing, advertising, driving massive traffic from across the globe. Right now, I got John Merles on the site. I got Mona from Denver, Colorado on the site. I got Michelle from Ottawa, Canada on there. I got Massapequa, New York. I got Sayreville, New Jersey, Poughkeepsie, New York, Charlotte, North Carolina, San Francisco, California, all over the place. If you're thinking about selling, reach out to the one who already has buyers in place. That's who we are. We have buyers that we can match up, and technology, and the sales team makes 14,000 phone calls a week, and who's hustling this weekend. Really quick, awesome success story. Craig, Larry, Susan, Maria reached out to us as they were finishing probate. He to sell their father's home after he passed away. Craig's a son in charge. They wanted to get cash split between 4 siblings. They initially just wanted to invest their cash buyout because they lived out of state. They didn't want to have the time to deal with it, fix it up, or do anything with it. That's what made them want the cash offer. Thankfully, they came to us. We gave them 2 options: a quick sale program. We send it to all 90,000 buyers that we have, and also push it out to investors. Launched that. We created a global marketing blitz, launch out to our buyers. They were blown away. Had 10 showings in 3 days. 3 offers, cash offer, full price, set to close in 3 weeks. And here's the coolest part. They had a bunch of big furniture in there. They didn't want to deal with. We had the buyer to keep the furniture. And so they didn't have to drive 6 hours to get anything out. They were absolutely blown away. And they were so surprised that we put significant amount more money in their pocket they ever thought possible versus taking an investor offer. Also, Kareem, also another probate, had a house in Myrtle Beach. Her father passed away recently, did not live in the area. Thankfully, saw our 1,100 5-star reviews online. The brother recommended that she call us. We came in. Then we had 100 investors who can buy it as is condition where it was. Also, go marketing blitz, professional photos, a virtual walkthrough. Within a couple of days, with massive traffic, had a fantastic as is offer on the property. They can move on, put maximum equity in their pocket. So if you want the most amount of money, don't give your equity away. Make sure you go with an absolute agent who can make it for you. Give me a call, 843-808-SOLD or blakesloan.com. We'll see you back here next week.